it's your show, so I think you do that.
All right. Now,
After all, it does say trusty sidekick.
the trusty sidekick.
Yeah.
Well, let me introduce myself first then. I'm Walker Chandler. I'm a lawyer in Georgia, and I've been active one way or another in scouting since I was a Cub Scout, like a beginner Cub Scout, 6 years old or 7 years old. And so I have as my trusty sidekick here is Elliott Coker, who's, as you can see, a young man and who has also been active in scouting all of his life and who now has children that are in scouting and including a girl. And so, which I think is a great new improvement of the American scouting movement was to go ahead and let girls come into the program. Now, as my trusty sidekick, Elliott's also the technical man. I'm not so technically oriented myself, but we hope uh, these podcasts will be of great interest to people all over the world. And that's our plan, is to try to encourage people all over the world to watch the podcast, to participate in them, to make comments, and then we'll provide a comments section when we really get rolling. And we'll try to be interviewing people from various walks of life and with a primary emphasis on the scouting walks of life. Now, one of the things, and I'm talking too much here, Elliot, but
Oh, go ahead. Continue, please.
well, one of the things that I do as part of my scouting life is that I am a Baden-Powell reenactor. Now, some of you, uh, look at that, I'm on full size now. Some of you are very familiar with who Baden-Powell is, and others might not be. But Baden-Powell was uh, a British Army officer who rose to fame in his successful defense of the town of Mafeking in the Boer War. A lot of people don't have any idea what that is, but the Boer War took place in 1899, 1900. And the uh, when it broke out, he was a lieutenant colonel in a northern outpost town, a small railroad junction type town near the border with the Boer state. And so immediately the Boers invested the town. That is to say, they laid siege to it and greatly outnumbered the troops of Baden Powell. And he, through all kinds of clever ways that he had, um, uh, multiplied the effects of his units and and lasted out a 10-month siege. And during that time, the British Army had several reverses of fortunes, and so in Great Britain, the populace was very distressed by these defeats of the field armies, but very encouraged by the spirited defense of Mafeking. And so, when finally the siege was lifted, uh, Baden Powell was a national hero. And so, any rate, and then when he got back to England, uh, boys all over the country were reading his a book that he had written called Aids to Scouting. We have a copy of that. Yes, we have a copy of that. Let's see. We have also another way to put up that is a virtual background of this. No, that's the brick background. So okay, that's not the back. But we have a. But Aids to Scouting was his book that he had written for young men in Army service. And the idea there was that so many of the young men had no experience in the field. That is to say, out scouting by themselves. We don't want a virtual background there, do we? No.
No, it's okay. You if you want to get rid of that one, I'll get the AIDS scout again.
Yeah, well, look at that. Somehow or another, I can't get rid of it. But anyway, so that's our introduction here. And to what we're hoping to accomplish here in this series of podcasts that we're going to be doing. Elliot, tell them about your scouting background.
So I'm a younger guy. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've got three children. I've got a 14-year-old girl and 11-year-old boy in scouting, and I've been in scouting or a scouter for the past 20 years. So also since I was 6 or 7 years old, I forget, but I didn't start as a tiger cub or a lion cub. They didn't have lion cubs at the time when I was coming up. They did have tiger cubs, but maybe it's got something to do with having a late birthday or something. I just didn't get involved with tiger cubs. I jumped in as a wolf cub scout and went all the way through. Went all the way to the Weevillos 2 program and crossed over. Got my Arrow of Light, and then I crossed over into Troop 65 out of Stockbridge, Georgia. The troop leaders are Gene and Joe Linda Ingram. They were the people who started the troop initially. I think in 1990 something, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little after. I'm not sure, but they started that Troop 65 in Stockbridge, and I went all the way up through and got my Eagle Scout in December of 2015. Um, and so yeah, now I'm an adult scouter. I'm a unit committee member for Troop 66 out of McDonough, Georgia, um, and I'm the committee member for my oldest daughter's troop, um, which is really just a. It's not. It seems like one big troop, kind of. They are separate boy troop and girl troop right now, but I believe that that's gonna change soon, and it's all gonna be one troop with just different patrols. So they'll have girl patrols and boy patrols, which I mean, six and one half dozen another to me, as far as that goes. But I've been a scouter my whole life. I love it. I was a huge summer camp staffer. I did that for 5 years. I had five separate summers. Well, 4 summers, part of one summer because I got really sick my first summer camp and had to go home. But I love scouting. I will be a lifelong scouter for sure. Well, so long as my kids want to do it, at least. If the kids want to do it, I'll continue to be involved. But maybe even if they don't want to be, who knows?
That's right. It's interesting how many men and women have had their lives enhanced by their scouting experience, and they realize they have to give back, and and they uh, not just for their own kids. I remember when I was a child in our church, when a child was christened, that was a Presbyterian church. They would the uh, they would have this thing they'd say, and to those of you who in the congregation who are willing to stand by the child and help it and guide the child until he professes his faith. If you do, will you please stand? In other words, there was that whole thing of the congregation. It wasn't just a parents presenting their child to be christened, but it was the whole congregation accepting the responsibility for it. Ah, there's the book. Uh, sounds
Better
good.
late than never.
And that's right. Better late than never. What we'll do on a lot of these things is we'll have discussions about various points. You said, for example, that you were that you said, for example, that you were active in the merit badges and the programs at camp. And so, what we hope to do is talk about all those different sorts of things that scouts learn, all the different, and that's where I think I hate to say it, but that's where I think scouting is just way ahead of. This is my son who's also an Eagle Scout trying to call me, but I'm going to just tell him that no, I can't talk now. And so, any rate, um, the the scouting offers all of these things. For example, life saving. life saving is not something you're going to get on your sports team that you play, your soccer team or your baseball or whatever. Uh, you're not going to get canoeing and rowing and uh, river kayaking and fishing and all those different things. And the scouts try to make sure that a scout is, in a sense, almost like one of those Army scouts we tried to, that Baden-Powell was talking about. When he got back to England, children were reading that book of his that he had written for Army scouts, and they were playing scouts the same way that American children were playing cowboys and Indians. And so it was so a lot of people got together with him, some rather influential people, and said, "Look, let's try to organize all these different things." And there were already some boy organizations going, some the Boys Brigade, and in the United States we had Dan Beard had something about an Indian type thing, and of course that's one of the things I think that Americans should be very proud of in about scouting is its embrace of the Native American culture. Were you ever involved in any of the Indian lore type things?
Well, if you mean the Order of the Arrow, I was in that briefly. I was so more involved in the National Youth Leadership Training and summer camp that I didn't really make a lot of time for the Order of the Arrow. But I do remember from my Cub Scouting days the Aquila, follow the Aquila, the leader, which the Aquila is the leader of the pack. And that's a Native American thing, is it not? Or maybe that's African. Oh my goodness.
Well, it's certainly a wolf thing. And Baden Powell wrote this book. It's
Hmm.
the Wolf Cub Handbook, and
Wow.
he talked, and this is a great book. And he it's sort of a hindsight. It's a book that he wrote after his main book, which was Scouting for Boys.
Boys, yeah.
And Scouting for Boys came out in a serialized version in 1907, 1908, and and then it was combined. And Baden Powell himself did most of the illustrations. Or in fact, I think he did all of the illustrations, and he was a very good. And we'll post illustrations from time to time, and I'm sure that most of the scouters that watch these podcasts are going to be very familiar with at least some of Baden Powell's work. He could, when he was a child, that was, of course, before photography ever became widely available. And so children practiced drawing at a much higher rate than ever since then. But he could draw with both his right and his left hands. And he was quite the illustrator. And so I think we'll all enjoy comparing notes on that in these future podcasts.
I'd say so.
So, at any rate, what else shall we talk about for just this little practice introductory podcast here?
Um,
How about this?
but
Why don't we solicit um, we'll, if we post this one out, we will solicit comments and suggestions,
yeah,
and
please.
and and let's put up my email address too,
Yes.
so we'll have that. Okay. And that way people could just go ahead and directly email me. I maybe should have typed that in where it says discussing the future with Elliott.
Hmm.
See, I wonder if I could change that right now.
Hold on, I could do this right here, right now, actually.
Aha.
Let's. Wait, I don't
Zach
want that one.
Banner, okay.
All right, let's see. Your email is
Walker
Walker
at
at Walker.
walkerchandler.com.
Aha.
There we go. Oh, I like that. That's good. And and then also people can just look at walkerchandler.com. And I'm not trying to brag about myself or something, but that'll help people uh, say, who is this guy? Is this, it's interesting. I went to at my Kiwanis club today. They were talking about people creating false personalities, like false names and so forth. Well, this is a way that people can actually say, hey, this guy really exists and he's in Georgia and Elliott's in Georgia. And so we can rely on them. Of course, you know that we all know that the first of the scout laws is a scout is trustworthy. And so that's one thing we want to always emphasize is the points of the scout law, because when children, just like when they go to church and they repeat the things at church, that becomes a part of them. And scouting, it becomes a part of them. What is the scout motto? Be prepared.
Hmm.
What's the slogan? Do a good turn daily. What are the 12 points of the scout law? And we'll talk about each one of those points.
Hmm. That sounds like a good idea.
Yes. What
Well, I'd say the
we want to know we're
successful.
trustworthy. You and me are
Hmm.
trustworthy.
I'd say so. I don't. I found out at a young age that it's much more difficult to keep up with lies. So you may as well tell the truth. And just because I do that, I've just been more trustworthy because of it. Because I'm just going to tell the truth anyway.
Yeah. All right. Shall we call an end to this evening, and
I'd
then
say so.
invite people to send to my email address, and
Hmm.
if they have any, if and when people see this banner, and then they can send us suggestions or even offer to appear. I'm pretty convinced that we can get scout leaders from all over the world to just give us some of their time and do these interviews.
I think it'd be fun. Well, uh, I've had a good first episode on this way. Uh,
Yes,
have a great scouting life.
that's found. Good night, everybody.